some of America's banks have been discriminating, debanking customers because of their religious beliefs, because they support the Second Amendment, or because they hate fossil fuels. I don't want to go with all three of you. I'll run out of time. Mr. Ring, is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir.
Which banks?
What's up, Patriots? Welcome back to Founding Voice America, where we say what the media won't, and we stand unapologetically for faith, freedom, and the Constitution. Now listen, folks, if you still think the banks in this country are neutral institutions just handling your money and keeping it safe, you're living in a fantasy. Today, I'm reacting to something that should fire up every God-fearing, freedom-loving American. A Senate hearing where Senator John Kennedy absolutely demolishes the lies coming from the woke financial elite. Let me break this down for you, because what we're talking about here is not just about banks. It's about tyranny. It's about censorship. It's about a systematic effort to choke out anyone who dares to stand up for the Second Amendment, traditional values, or American energy independence. Senator Kennedy, God bless him, goes straight for the jugular. He asks the question no one else in D.C. has the backbone to ask. Which banks are debanking Americans for supporting the Second Amendment? And you know what? These execs don't even deny it. They try to dodge, they try to dance, but one by one, the names start dropping. Bank of America, Chase, Citibank, KeyBank. These are the institutions that millions of Americans trust with their livelihoods, and now we find out they're playing ideological games with our money? Let me ask you something. Since when did it become a crime to believe in the Constitution? Since when did support for the right to bear arms, a right enshrined in our founding documents, become something punishable by financial exile? This is not just woke capitalism, folks. This is economic warfare. It's a full-blown, coordinated attack on conservative Americans, Christians, gun owners, oil workers, ranchers, veterans, all being quietly shut out by institutions that we bailed out, by the way. Senator Kennedy makes a brilliant point. He says, under Biden, the conversation shifted from who pays more taxes to where the hell did all the money go? And that's exactly what we should all be asking. Because while American families are struggling to fill their gas tanks, put food on the table, and hold on to their savings, these banks are holding seminars on whether or not men can breastfeed. Seriously? Are you kidding me? That's what they're spending their time and money on? This is the rot that has infected corporate America. This performative wokeness where pronouns are sacred, drag queens are heroes, and patriotic gun owners are suddenly domestic threats.
Senator Warner is a reasonable man. Everybody on this committee knows that. And he's a good man. And I understand he's interested in process, and I'm not saying that process isn't important. But if the United States of America has been taking taxpayer money and using it to produce a transgender opera in Colombia, then I want to know about it. And I'm glad to know about it. And it seems to me that that's the main issue with respect to all of this. And I look forward to talking further with my friend, Mr. Warner, about that. I mean, for 4 years, under President Biden, as was his right, the topic of discussion in Washington was who needs to pay more in taxes? Who needs to pay more in taxes? That's no longer the main question. The main question is now, as it should be in my judgment, what the hell happened to all the money? And we're going to find out. Now, I need to get back to the subject, with the exception of Mr. Klein, whose testimony I enjoyed. I understand his position. He wants to let the CFPB run America's banks, and I appreciate that perspective, but Mr. Klein, it's not going to happen in your natural lifetime or mine. Now, let me turn to the other gentleman. What I hear Mr. McCauley, Mr. Ring, and Mr. Gannon saying is that some of America's banks have been discriminating, debanking customers because of their religious beliefs, because they support the Second Amendment, and or because they hate fossil fuels. I don't want to go with all three of you. I'll run out of time. Mr. Ring, is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir.
Which banks?
Well, I think it's been publicly reported that Bank of America has certainly picked and choose winners.
Who else?
I think Chase Bank has.
Who else?
I think Citibank has.
Who else?
I think Key Bank has.
Who else?
I'm going to probably run out of names pretty soon, but I think the mega banks are. Old Glory Bank is not, of course. We
Well, then
love
we
the
need
Second
to-
Amendment and fossil fuels.
We need to get those banks in here, Mr. Chairman. We need to get all those CEOs in here.
I would agree.
Now, why? I appreciate your candor. Why do you think, are banks doing this because they're scared of the regulators? Are they doing this because the people running the banks are prosecuting their political beliefs? I mean, when a bank holds a seminar, taking up valuable employee time to discuss whether a man can breastfeed, are they doing that because regulators are leaning on them? Or are they doing that because the CEO really thinks that's subject to debate?
I think it's definitely the latter, and I think it's also middle management.
What do you mean the latter?
It is not the regulators. I do not believe the regulators pushed the big banks to debank conservative
You
causes. I do not. I think it was their internal choice by these big banks.
Why?
Well, why? The same reason why big tech pick and choose winners. I think big banks pick and choose winners that they care about, and that's why we need a market solution, because you can't regulate that type of behavior without having unintended consequences. And now every time you get a customer application, you've got to fill out 5 forms as to why you did or did not pick that customer.
So you think that that's the management of these banks that are just imposing their own politics on customers and ultimately to the detriment of shareholders? Is that your testimony?
Yes, sir.
Either you two gentlemen in my last 10 seconds disagree with that?
I strongly disagree, Senator. Yes, I've spent a lot of time with a number of bank CEOs.
Who do you think it is?
I believe it's the regulators.
How about you, sir?
It's definitely regulators. All the big banks wanted to work with crypto and were scared away from it by the regulatory apparatus.
All right, I'm out of time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank all of you for your testimony. Mr. Ring, you work hard to protect your customers' sensitive personal information, do you not?
Yes, sir.
And you wouldn't just turn it over to anybody who walked into your bank, would you?
No.
And Mr. McCauley, I assume the same is true for you.
Now let's talk motives. Kennedy asked the execs point blank, are the banks doing this because of regulatory pressure or because their CEOs are politically motivated? One of them, with shocking honesty, said it's the management, not the regulators. It's the bank execs themselves. They're choosing to discriminate. They're choosing to silence. They're choosing to punish ordinary Americans for holding values they disagree with. Let that sink in. These megabank CEOs aren't being forced to cancel your account for supporting the NRA or owning a small business that sells firearms. They're choosing to do it. Because in their little cocktail party worldview, anyone who flies the flag, owns a rifle, or believes in traditional marriage is a threat to progress. It's disgusting. And it proves what we've been saying here at Founding Voice America for years. Woke capital is the new fascism. They don't need jackboots and camps when they can just shut off your debit card and freeze your account. So what do we do? What's the solution? Kennedy nailed it. We need market alternatives. We need banks, businesses, and platforms that aren't run by progressive ideologues who treat the Constitution like toilet paper. We need financial institutions that respect freedom, not try to regulate it out of existence. We need Old Glory Bank and others like it to rise up and give Americans a real choice. Because right now, the deck is stacked. You think you have freedom, but when every major bank, every credit card processor, every social media platform is run by woke billionaires who hate your values, what kind of freedom is that? That's digital slavery. And don't think it stops with guns. Once they normalize debanking gun owners, they'll come for the churches that won't perform same-sex weddings. They'll come for the oil companies. They'll come for the homeschoolers. They'll come for you. This is why 2024 isn't just another election. This is a crossroads. We either take our country back, or we lose it for good. And I don't care how uncomfortable that truth makes the soy latte crowd, it's the truth. This is about economic freedom, civil liberties, the right to live without being punished for loving America and living by God's law. I'm proud of Senator Kennedy for asking the hard questions. We need 100 more like him in Washington. But until that day comes, we, the people, must be the firewall. We must vote with our wallets. We must support institutions that honor our values. We must teach our kids what real liberty means. Because the minute you're too scared to speak, too scared to buy a gun, too scared to post online, they've already won. But not here. Not now. Not ever. This is Founding Voice America, where we hold the line. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America. Smash that like button, subscribe, and share this video with every single American who refuses to bow to the woke mob. Stay loud. Stay free. And as always, keep your powder dry.